In this video, I'm going to show you 5 ways that you can reduce the stress that goes along with the ascension process. Hi, I'm Saratoga Ocean. One of the most important things that we need to focus on is how to relieve the stress and anxiety that often goes along with living through these incredibly difficult times. Stress and anxiety can create massive discord in our energy fields, which will then be reflected in negative ways in our overall experience. So I'm going to show you 5 ways that you can ease any anxiety or stress and adjust more gracefully to our ascension process. Now, ascension is powerful, but it's also stressful. That's because it involves tremendous change and a lot of unpredictability. Relationships change, timelines are splitting, and then there are forces trying to hold on to the old status quo. And there is extremely high vibrational light entering into our planetary reality. And in a way, it's like constantly dealing with the unknown. And then we're also constantly experiencing new revelations and exposures of weaknesses in what we once thought were reliable systems of our lives. So a lot of ascension stress has to do with massive transitioning. It's very much like the metaphor of the caterpillar transitioning from its old reality into the new reality of being a butterfly. And I really like that metaphor because if you think about it, a caterpillar is actually a lower vibrational entity. It's completely earthbound, whereas a butterfly is a much higher vibration. And along with that higher vibration comes a huge expansion of its reality, of its territory, if you will. So if we look at that metaphor in terms of our own reality, if we look at our earth-based reality, what we're transitioning away from, it's a low vibration of compliance and basically unconsciousness. So that would be sort of like akin to the analogy of the caterpillar. So we're going through a transition right now that is as powerful as that transition from the caterpillar to the butterfly, where we can see that we are ascending to a much higher vibration of reality that includes a great deal of creativity and consciousness expansion. So that would be akin to the expansion and the ascension of the butterfly. So if you think about it, the transition from one form of life to another can be stressful. So the whole idea is we want to do what we can to make the transition that is inherent in ascension as graceful and as conscious and as balanced as possible. And the best way to do that is to reduce the stress and anxiety that generally accompanies that process. So here are the 5 things that you can do, or the 5 ways that you can try to relieve the stress and anxiety that often accompanies an ascension process. The first thing you can do is end the confusion that goes along with all of these transitions by waking up and accepting a new reality. And I'm not talking about the controller's reality. I'm talking about recognizing that all of these changes and transitions are part of the process itself. And it's actually very helpful to expect that kind of tumultuousness. I don't mean expect it from a place of fear, but expect it from a place of being at a higher level of consciousness where you really understand what is actually going on. So the first thing you want to do is probably not expect things to go back to the previous normal, because we're moving out of that reality into a new one, and that's of course what the timeline split is all about. So we don't want to be holding on to that old reality and saying, oh, if we could just go back to how it was. Because see, as long as we keep wanting it to go back to how it was, we're going to find ourselves feeling very confused, and it's going to be very difficult to process this transition. Because what this transition involves, it involves a whole lot of reactivity. I mean, everything and everyone is reacting, right? The controllers are reacting. The people on this earth are reacting. It can be very, very chaotic. So as the cosmic beings that we are, as starseeds, wayshowers, lightworkers, awakening human beings, if we wake up and understand that this is part of the transition that leads to the split in timelines, and we stand on the firm ground of understanding and clarity and awareness and knowledge that this is what it looks like, then we will ease a lot of our stress, a lot of our anxiety by relieving ourselves of confusion. Confusion happens when you're trying to hold on to how it was, or you want to somehow manipulate things or hope that somebody will manipulate them to go back to how they were. Then you can get really confused and unsettled and feel very, very uncertain with a lot of anxiety. But if you understand that you are a cosmic creator, you are a cosmic being in the universe, you came here with an awareness. This is what we need to wake up to, right? We need to wake up to our awareness that this is exactly what would be expected to happen under these circumstances. So it's more like accepting the reality of ascension and evolution on a much larger scale. When you accept and understand that reality, it doesn't mean we have to like it necessarily, but when we understand what is actually going on, it eases the stress, it eases the confusion, and that is what's going to make your journey feel a lot more graceful overall and a lot less painful or stressful. Now, the second thing you can do to ease stress and tension and anxiety during this ascension process is to position yourself to be responsive. You want to be mindful and self-aware. Are you repeating the same behaviors and making the same decisions as though nothing has changed? Because see, we as human beings on this earth, we are very programmed to routines, to unconscious routines and unconscious beliefs. And if we keep acting out of those unconscious beliefs and patterns and routines, we're going to feel a lot of strain because the reality around us is not supporting those things anymore. So if we just remain unconscious and keep trying to do the same things, think the same way, do the same behaviors, we're going to increase our level of stress. So the best thing to do is to just calm yourself down and say, okay, how can I respond to the current situation? What is the best possible response? Do I need to change my behaviors? And when I say change behaviors, I don't mean, let the controllers tell you what to do next and comply. That's not the kind of change I'm talking about behavior. I'm talking about changing behaviors that support you, that empower you, that raise your vibration, that expand your consciousness, those kinds of changes. It's really about being responsive in a way that shows to yourself that you understand your role in all of this. And I think that's a big part of relieving the stress, is when we really understand and accept our role in this ascension process. I mean, our role in a way is to be transcendent of it, to be more expanded in our consciousness than what we see happening on this planet. So in essence, if you're trying to maintain the same behaviors, the same beliefs, the same perspectives on everything, that all came out of the old reality, and then this new reality of timeline splitting, which is a big deal, is manifesting. What you then have in your consciousness is you have two conflicting realities that will never ever mesh together. And if you're trying to live and deal with those two conflicting realities, you're going to experience a lot of stress and anxiety. When you're responsive instead, when you are responsive on a daily basis and you let go of all the old behaviors, the old beliefs, that old stuff, it frees you to respond appropriately and accordingly in a way that is best for you according to the current situation. See, a lot of the idea of reducing stress and anxiety is really about reducing the feeling of internal conflict in yourself and in your consciousness, because the more that you can reduce that feeling of conflict, the more you're going to feel calm and whole again and at peace to a certain degree. I mean, it's kind of hard to feel peaceful all the time given what's going on, but what we want to do is be as centered and as peaceful as we possibly can be. Now, the third way to reduce stress and anxiety in the ascension process is to get comfortable with a solitary path. Now, that's not to say that you should feel like, oh, I should be comfortable with feeling alone and abandoned. No, it's when I say solitary path, I'm really referring to your sovereignty as a being. See, you are living on a planet full of people who are completely brainwashed to believe that reality is all about compliance. And here's something really, really important to recognize. What often draws people together is their mutual willingness to comply with outside authorities. I mean, most people have spent a lifetime practicing this, and many of them are really not ready to quit doing that right now because as yet they really haven't discovered another way. I want to share a little story with you. I want to give you a simple example of how this works because there's a really simple analogy that I can share with you that I think is going to help you understand why people find it so difficult to be sovereign and not to be part of a horde of compliant people. And I'm going to share an example with you from the world of ballet because I have a background in that and I know something about how that works. So when we were living in Santa Fe, we met a woman who had been a soloist with American Ballet Theater. And if you're not familiar with the ballet world, that's one of the major companies on the planet. And she had a great career in front of her, but she just one day said, I can't do this anymore. And she quit because she just wanted to go and have a different kind of life. Now, the thing about ballet, if you know anything about the dance world and professional ballet, you know that a person will spend a lifetime from very young childhood all the way through adulthood, practicing the same thing over and over again. It's a very small world. It's a very small reality actually compared to the wider world, but all of the attention is focused on that reality. You're talking about people who literally eat, sleep, and breathe a certain reality. So imagine a person in that reality who has been practicing this for their entire life. So she decides she wants to leave. And one day she shared with me how incredibly difficult it was for her to do anything else. She really wanted to do something else, but she just kept going back to teaching because that's what actually happens to a lot of professional dancers. They end up teaching ballet because they don't know anything else and they don't know how to break out of that reality. And there was another time when I met a woman who had been a principal dancer with the same American Ballet Theater. She was retired for quite a while, and I was speaking to her, and she shared with me that she had invented, if you're a ballet dancer, you know what I'm talking about, she had invented this thing with ribbons on point shoes where you put the elastic, attach the elastic to the ribbon. You guys probably don't know what I'm talking about, but it's just a small thing, but it turned out to be a big deal because she invented it. But what she told me is that she did not know, because she'd been in ballet all her life and she didn't know how to think outside of that reality. This is so fascinating to me, you guys, as an example. She didn't know how to think outside of that reality. This is what she told me. And what happened was a big company picked it up, patented it, and it's sold all over the place. It's like completely popular. Everybody loves it. Everybody uses it. And I think she was in her 60s, and she was still, she said, I'm still trudging around teaching ballet classes all over the country. And she said, you know what? If I had had the mind, if I'd had a different kind of mind, like if I hadn't been in the ballet world all my life and I didn't know anything else, I would have known to patent that, to do something with it. And she said, if I had done that, I could be laying on a beach, retired right now, having a wonderful life. And she said, instead, I'm still doing the same thing. I'm just trudging around, teaching classes. And I thought, wow, that's amazing, because this is such a common story. Now, let's take that very tiny example and liken it to the wider world of compliance according to the bigger reality that the controllers have established for everyone. And it's the same story. You have people who have been doing this all their lives from when they were tiny, and they don't know anything else. And some people could be very dissatisfied. They could be very unhappy, but they just can't break free. Just like these examples I gave you of these ballet dancers who end up teaching classes for the rest of their lives because they just can't break free out of that reality. So it's almost like, because we are designed as humans, unfortunately, and this is a biological design, okay? This is not who we really are. But biologically, we are designed to be highly programmable entities. And that means that we can be programmed into a certain reality and live as though that reality is all there is. And when we do that for a lifetime, it's very difficult to break out of that. So when you awaken, when you experience a spiritual awakening on any level, when people go through that, there's a very good chance that they're waking up in the midst of family and friends who are still living inside that programmed, compliant reality. So there's a lot of stress involved in that because you're waking up among people who just aren't there with you. So again, this actually goes back to the first way that I was sharing with you about understanding the nature of ascension, understanding the nature of what is actually going on in this much, much larger process. That people awaken, everybody has their own timing. Some people maybe never are going to wake up. They might just want to continue on the timeline they've been on, and others are going to, there's all kinds of possibilities, and everyone is unique and individual, but there's no guarantee that you're going to awaken and your friends and family are going to awaken at the same rate that you are. So when you understand that this is a natural process, this is really how it works, then you can perhaps let go of expectations and just start to let it go and feel more comfortable on a solitary path. Because the truth is, all of evolution really is a solitary path. I mean, we are, each one of us, a sovereign being. We are on our own evolutionary trajectory, and it's really just a matter of recognizing that and being comfortable with it, and still being able to be in relationship with the people around you to whatever extent that is appropriate and supportive of your own experience. Now, just so that doesn't make you feel a little bit too lonely, let me remind you of a couple of things. There are so many people just like you all over the world. There are millions of people around the world who are experiencing this awakening process, this ascension process, becoming conscious to it, who might also feel very alone. Here's what I want to say about that. You actually have a new, incredibly powerful friend. That friend is the universe. So you can think of it as you have a brand new friend. Your new friend is the universe itself, because you are a part of the universe, and this ascension process is actually much, much bigger than just our planet. It is actually the entire universe evolving back into its natural state. So recognize that the universe is a living, incredibly beautiful, loving consciousness. And so I encourage you to get close to that energy and feel its loving embrace. Okay, so the fourth way that you can reduce stress and anxiety in the ascension process is to upgrade your view of yourself. Realize that who you are is not your past. You are actually not the sum total of all of your experiences. Those experiences shape your perception, but they're not who you are. Actually, those experiences, more than anything else, act as filters. So you don't want to confuse yourself with the filters that you see the world through. See, some of those experience filters are positive and some of them are negative. And this is the really neat thing, you guys. Who you are as a conscious being of light, who you are has the power to heal and transmute those negative filters. So here's a really simple way to look at this. Positive experience filters actually allow more of your light to expand. And negative experience filters actually impede or block your light. And it's so interesting when you really distill all of these things down to how simple it really is, because those positive experience filters are born out of experiences that are probably based somewhere in love. Love is, of course, compatible with light and radiance, whereas negative experiences likely are fear-based and they are not compatible with radiating light, so they tend to repress light. They tend to impede or to block your light. So it's all about working with and through those filters to allow more of your power and your light to manifest. And that's really the simplicity of your goal. See, if you think that you are the filter, if you think that you are your past experiences, then you really don't have a whole lot of power to change. And you're going to feel very, very stuck. And when there's so much transitioning and tumultuous energy happening, feeling stuck produces stress and anxiety. You're going to see how these 5 ways kind of intermingle, because when you feel stuck, you don't feel like you can be responsive either, right? And being responsive was the second thing I talked about to reduce stress and anxiety. See, I think a lot of times when a person is really ready for positive change, they're really ready to let go of something in their life that's maybe been just a very difficult pattern or something that's been holding them back. When a person is finally ready for that, I think what really happens is they're no longer identifying whatever that thing is as being who they are. And that's what allows that letting go to happen. That's what allows that transmutation to happen, that transition to happen, that positive change to happen when you stop thinking that it's who you are or you stop thinking that it's you. Okay, so now I'm going to share with you the fifth way that you can reduce and ease stress and anxiety during this ascension process. And you might notice that all of the ways that I'm sharing with you are also ways to live as a highly conscious, high vibrational cosmic being. Isn't that pretty cool? So the fifth way to reduce stress and anxiety is to take excellent care of yourself. And in a way, this is kind of an extension of the fourth way because it really has a lot to do with self-worth and it has a lot to do with how you see yourself. And it has to do with how you see your real purpose in being on this planet. Because your job is not to comply with outside authorities. That's not your job. That's not why you're here. If you want to call it a job, I guess you could say your actual job is to evolve. That's what you are really called to do. You are actually being called to evolve as a being. That puts you in sync with the entire universe, which is also evolving. So in an ascension process, you're being called to evolve. You're not being called to hold on to the past, comply with the old reality, comply with those who want to control you. You see what a big difference that is? Now, we've been told all our lives that our life purpose, think about how weird this is. We've been told all our lives that our life purpose is literally to comply with outside authorities. That's what we've been told our purpose is. That's not our purpose. Our purpose is to evolve. It's really that simple. Now, the reason I said that number 5 is to take excellent care of yourself is because it's much more difficult to evolve if you are unhealthy and exhausted. And that's because being unhealthy and exhausted puts you in a survival state. Now, if you feel that you are in either one of those states of being unhealthy or exhausted, I want to help you reframe how you look at that. Just have a total paradigm shift of how you're approaching that situation. So if you're feeling unhealthy or depressed or exhausted, instead of allowing those states to put you in a state of survival, what you want to do instead is just take a look at that situation and say, okay, what I need to do is to evolve out of these states. And that's a completely different mindset than being in fear and depression and, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? Instead, it puts you actually on a positive path. So if you are feeling unhealthy, depressed, or exhausted, you can say, okay, this just shows me that I must evolve out of these states. Now, on the other hand, if you are feeling reasonably good, then your role is to do something to evolve so that you feel even better. See, your body, your mind, and your emotions form a union of experience that allows you to exist on this planet. And these three things together form your medium of evolution. So whatever condition you find yourself in, you can just remember that simple thing. Just say, okay, my body, my mind, and my emotions, whatever condition they're in, together they form a medium for me to evolve. My role is to evolve this medium of experience. You see how positive that is? That's a completely different mindset than one that has you stressed out and anxious about all of it. So the first step in evolving out of such states is, and really to evolve from any state, is to take extremely good care of yourself physically, mentally, and emotionally. And if you want some additional tips that can help you with this, you can check out my last video on new creative ways to set boundaries that are very, very empowering. I'll put the link to that video in the description. Now, all of these 5 tips put together are ways to help you achieve a sense of balance and feeling centered in this very tumultuous situation. And I would suggest that you start by focusing on any one of these 5 things. Focus on the one that really jumps out at you the most. And then you can come back and focus on another one. And I'm going to put chapter titles in the description for all 5 of these different tips so that you can come back and find them easily. And if you would like to, leave a comment below and let me know which one of these you feel most inclined to focus on first. So as you work with these 5 ways to reduce stress and anxiety in our ascension process, it will help you immensely to transition from an old reality where everything was predictable into our new reality of ascension and accelerated evolution. And that's what's going to bring you the clarity and the strength and the feelings of confidence about how to go forward in your life from here. So if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and share it out with anyone else who you think would benefit from this information. And be sure to subscribe if you haven't already and hit that notification bell because I am here every Sunday, Tuesday, and Friday with all new videos. And with that, I'm sending you so much love, light, and high vibrational energy, and I so look forward to seeing you in the next video. Namaste.